Paddy Pimblett's emotional reaction to Molly McCann's retirement. Paddy Pimblett was heartbroken. You could see it in his face, hear it in his voice. Molly McCann, his best friend, his teammate, his sister in the fight game, had just announced her retirement after a devastating loss to Alexia Thainara at UFC London. And Paddy? He couldn't hold back. As soon as the fight ended, Molly sat in the octagon, overwhelmed. The crowd, the energy, the weight of everything, her journey, her struggles, her highs and lows, it all crashed down on her. And then, in front of thousands of fans, she made it official. She was done. Backstage, Paddy was there for her. His usual playful, loud, and hyped-up energy? Completely gone. Instead, he was raw, emotional, and visibly shaken. "It's hard, lad. It's F***ing hard," Paddy said in an interview, his voice cracking. "Seeing her go out like that, it F***ing hurts." Molly and Paddy have been inseparable for years, rising through Cage Warriors, making their UFC debuts, and dominating with their signature energy. They weren't just teammates. They were family. But Molly's journey had taken a toll. The losses, the brutal weight cuts, the sacrifices, she knew it was time. Paddy understood, but that didn't make it easier. "She's one of the hardest workers I've ever met. She's been through so much," he said, shaking his head. "I just wanted her to go out on a win, man." The loss to Alexia Thainara wasn't just another fight. It was the moment Molly realized that pushing forward wasn't worth it anymore. And when she broke down, Paddy was right there, holding her, reminding her that no matter what, she was a legend. Fans felt it too. Social media blew up with messages of support. Fighters, analysts, even Dana White himself, everyone recognized Molly's impact on the sport. But what's next for Paddy? This moment changes him. He's always fought with passion, but now, there's something deeper. He's carrying Molly's spirit with him. And when he steps back into the octagon, don't be surprised if he fights like he's got something more to prove. And speaking of fighters with something to prove, another UFC star just made headlines for a completely unexpected reason. You won't believe what happened, let's talk about it. Cain Velasquez sentenced to 5 years for attempted murder. This is shocking. Cain Velasquez, one of the most dominant heavyweights in UFC history, a man respected by fighters and fans alike, has been sentenced to 5 years in prison. It all stems from the 2022 incident that left the MMA world in disbelief. Cain, a former champion, a family man, someone who always carried himself with discipline and respect, was suddenly at the center of an attempted murder case. But when you look at why he did it, it's hard not to understand. Cain wasn't just some fighter who lost control. He was a father protecting his family. In 2022, Cain found out that a man accused of abusing his 4-year-old son had been released on bail. This wasn't just some random person. This was someone close to his family, someone who was supposed to be trustworthy. And when Cain heard the details, something inside him snapped. That's when he got in his car, armed himself, and chased the man down in a high-speed pursuit through California. Cain fired shots into the vehicle, aiming for the man he believed had hurt his child. But in the chaos, he hit someone else, the suspect's stepfather. Cain was arrested immediately. And from that moment on, the MMA community rallied behind him. Fighters, fans, even Dana White, everyone understood why Cain did what he did. He wasn't some criminal looking for trouble. He was a father seeking justice. But the law doesn't work that way. Despite the overwhelming support, despite petitions for his release, despite even spending 8 months in jail before getting bail, the court still saw it as attempted murder. And now, Cain Velasquez is officially sentenced to 5 years in prison. Think about that. The man accused of harming his child walked free on bail, but Cain, the father who tried to take justice into his own hands, is the one serving time. MMA fighters immediately reacted. Khabib Nurmagomedov, Daniel Cormier, Henry Cejudo, they all expressed their frustration. Even Joe Rogan spoke about how any parent would have felt the same way Cain did. But at the end of the day, the court didn't bend. 5 years. That's Cain's reality now. So, what happens next? Will he get out early for good behavior? Will his story change laws regarding self-defense? There are still so many questions. But one thing is clear, Cain Velasquez's legacy is now forever tied to this tragic moment. And speaking of UFC legends facing real-life struggles, another former champion is dealing with something completely unexpected. You won't believe what just happened, let's get into it. Ilia Topuria declares himself the lightweight champion without fighting at lightweight. Ilia Topuria just did it again. The undefeated featherweight champion is making headlines, not for a fight, not for a call-out, but for crowning himself as the lightweight champion without even stepping into the division. That's right, no fights at 155. No official challenge. No belt. But in Topuria's mind, he's already the king. And if you know Ilia, you know this isn't just talk. Fresh off his dominant title win over Alexander Volkanovski, Topuria's confidence is at an all-time high. He's undefeated, he's got Spain and Georgia behind him, and he believes no one, not at 145 or 155, can touch him. During a recent interview, he didn't just suggest he'd move up. He declared himself the best lightweight on the planet. I'm already the world champion at 155. There's nobody on my level, he said. Think about that for a second. We've seen fighters talk about moving up before: Conor McGregor, Khabib, Volkanovski himself, but they at least fought in the division before claiming dominance. Ilya? He's skipping that step entirely. And you already know how the lightweight division reacted. Islam Makhachev? Silent. Charles Oliveira? Laughing. Justin Gaethje? Probably ready to throw hands. And then there's Max Holloway, who's been flirting with lightweight for years. If he beats Gaethje for the BMF title, he could be next in line for the 155 throne. Does Ilya see him as a threat? Not a chance. But let's be real, what happens when Ilya actually moves up? Would he dominate like he did at featherweight? Or is he underestimating real lightweights, the guys who have been taking bombs from Poirier, Chandler, and Fiziev? Because once you step into that weight class, size matters. And while Ilya is a powerhouse at 145, can he handle the pressure and wrestling of Islam? The power of Gaethje? The experience of Oliveira? One thing's for sure, if Ilya Topuria moves to lightweight, the UFC just got way more interesting. Leon Edwards' future in question after consecutive losses. What's next for the former champ? Leon "Rocky" Edwards just suffered his second straight loss, and let's be real, this changes everything. After reigning as the welterweight king, back-to-back defeats put his future in serious doubt. Is this the beginning of his downfall? Or can he bounce back and prove he's still an elite fighter? Let's break this down. Leon Edwards had worked for years to get the respect he deserved. He went on that crazy, unbeaten streak, took the belt from Kamaru Usman in legendary fashion, and defended it with pure skill. But now, 2 losses in a row and suddenly the division smells blood. This sport is ruthless. One moment you're on top, the next, you're fighting for relevance. So what exactly went wrong? At UFC London, Edwards needed to show he was still the man to beat. Instead, he fell short again. Was it his strategy? His mindset? Or has the division simply caught up to him? Whatever the reason, 2 straight losses put him in a dangerous spot. The UFC doesn't wait around. If you're not winning, they move on. And now, the big question, what's next for Leon? Let's be real, he's not getting another title shot anytime soon. That means one of 2 things: either he takes a step back and fights a lower-ranked contender to rebuild, or he risks it all by facing another top dog to stay relevant. But here's the problem: if he loses again? 3 in a row? That could be career-altering. Could we see a rematch with someone like Gilbert Burns? A fight against Shavkat Rakhmonov? Or maybe even a dangerous test against someone rising fast like Jack Della Maddalena? No matter what, his next fight is everything. It will define whether he's still a top welterweight or just another former champ who couldn't hold on. And here's another factor: how does the UFC see him now? Fighters like Colby Covington, Belal Muhammad, and Shavkat Rakhmonov are all waiting for their shot. If the UFC thinks Leon is no longer a major player, they'll start using him to build up newer contenders. That's the worst spot to be in. So, does Rocky still have that fight in him? Or is this the start of a painful decline? Only one fight can answer that question. But speaking of fighters at a crossroads, there's another huge name who might be on his way out of the UFC. And trust me, this one is going to shock a lot of people. Jon Jones defends Gable Steveson after shocking NCAA loss, upset of the century. Jon Jones, the UFC heavyweight champion, has spoken out in defense of his training partner, Olympic gold medalist Gable Steveson, after what many are calling the upset of the century. Steveson, an undefeated wrestling phenom, suffered a shocking loss at the NCAA championships, a moment nobody saw coming. This was a guy who dominated the wrestling world, an Olympic gold medalist, a 2-time NCAA champion, and someone many believed to be unbeatable. But that night, everything changed. The man responsible for this monumental upset? Arizona State's Colton Schultz. Schultz pulled off the impossible, handing Steveson the first loss of his collegiate career. And just like that, one of the biggest winning streaks in NCAA history came to an end. Now, here's where things get even crazier. As expected, the internet exploded. Social media was flooded with reactions, some supporting Steveson, but a massive wave of criticism also hit him. People started questioning his dominance, his training, even his future in combat sports. Some even went as far as saying maybe he's not as good as we thought. And that's when Jon Jones stepped in. Jones took to social media, shutting down the negativity and defending his training partner. He reminded everyone just how elite Steveson is, saying that one loss doesn't erase everything he's accomplished. Jones knows exactly what it's like to deal with pressure, scrutiny, and haters waiting for you to fall. So when he saw the world turning on Steveson, he had to speak up. But let's be real, this loss raises some big questions. Is this just a minor setback, or does it expose real weaknesses in Stevenson's game? Jon Jones clearly believes in Stevenson's potential. He's been training with him, sharpening his skills for MMA, and if Jones, a guy who's widely considered the GOAT, sees something special in him, then maybe we shouldn't be so quick to doubt him. But here's the thing, Stevenson's loss isn't just about wrestling anymore. It affects his entire future. His name has been linked to the UFC for years now. Dana White has openly expressed interest in bringing him into the octagon. But after this loss, has his stock dropped? Because let's not forget, the transition from wrestling to MMA is brutal. Look at guys like Bo Nickel, he's making waves in the UFC, but even he had to start from the bottom, grinding his way up. If Stevenson struggled against a wrestler like Schultz, what happens when he faces an elite MMA grappler? Now, Jon Jones isn't just backing up his guy with words, he's putting in work with Stevenson. Training under Jones could be exactly what Stevenson needs to evolve. Because let's be honest, MMA is a different beast. Wrestling alone doesn't cut it. If he wants to succeed in the UFC, he needs striking, submissions, everything. So, what's next for Gable Steveson? Will he bounce back stronger, prove the doubters wrong, and transition?